Look closely at the property directly over my shoulder, because this is actually Nancy's true residence. Reaching this rear perimeter is the absolute closest anyone can physically approach right now. Just hang tight, because I am bringing you right up to the boundary line in just a moment. There are fascinating details hidden from aerial cameras that only become visible from this ground vantage point. I also need to share some breaking updates that were just verified by an insider tied directly to the ongoing probe. My contact confirmed there was absolutely zero evidence of a struggle within her residence. Not a single trace of an altercation. The interior was incredibly tidy, and my source even describes specific rooms as completely spotless. An earth-shattering detail just dropped, and once you hear it, your entire perspective on this suspected abduction will shift permanently. Forget about those concerning crimson stains discovered near the entryway. We are definitely going to cover that evidence later. This is also not about that disguised individual carrying the pack and the dangerous tool. It does not even involve those chilling extortion letters. We absolutely must discuss those extortion messages, though, since a massive development dropped yesterday that completely flips the narrative. The exact element that alters the entire picture is quite simple. Out of everyone who reached out regarding this mystery, absolutely nobody has offered a single snapshot. Nobody has supplied a voice recording or even a basic handwritten note from Nancy Guthrie to prove she survived past leaving her doorway. Not a single shred of proof has surfaced in 66 days. Yet yesterday, precisely when Savannah Guthrie resumed her morning television hosting duties, a fresh message landed at the celebrity gossip outlet. For the very first time, the author alleged that the missing woman had sadly passed away. This evening, we are analyzing the underlying messages from the most respected criminal investigators in the country. We are talking about a former Federal Bureau agent and intelligence operative. Add in a highly decorated National News Network crime analyst, plus a veteran investigator who labeled these demands as parasitic from the start. That makes 3 completely separate authorities. Yet they all share one grim conclusion that nobody wants to state out loud. Nancy Guthrie might never have been taken by force in the first place. Do not go anywhere. Between the red evidence, the rucksack, that 41-minute gap, and those unanswerable extortion demands, a far more logical, yet utterly devastating narrative emerges. Welcome back to our community. Whether you are tuning in from the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, or any other global location tonight, please pause whatever activities you are doing immediately and send up some powerful, hopeful thoughts for our missing matriarch. Your spiritual intercession could be the exact miracle needed for her safe return. Lord, we elevate this lost soul to your grace this evening. We pray you accomplish what standard detective work simply cannot achieve. Please expose all the deeply concealed secrets to the light, actively direct the professionals analyzing the physical clues, and deliver the hard closure this family has desperately sought for 66 torturous days. Please remain vigilant out in the world. May divine grace shield you and your loved ones no matter where your screens are glowing from this evening. We further ask for a swift resolution to this mystery so she can finally rest in her own residence. Drop an affirmation in the chat if you share this faith. Sound off with your viewing location and leave your personal theories or clues down below, as your insights could crack this entire mystery wide open. Let us dive into the facts. Prior to breaking down expert opinions, the mysterious stains the bag, and those messages that abruptly halted like a severed cord, we must map out the chronology. Forget the sanitized sequence echoing across mainstream media broadcasts, because we need to focus on the specific timeline that actually fuels our upcoming analysis. The subject is 84 years of age. She happens to be the mother of a very famous morning television host on a major broadcasting network. She resides solo in the quiet Catalina Foothills district bordering Tucson, Arizona. It is an incredibly peaceful and isolated community. You will find very few outward-pointing cameras and almost zero vehicles driving by at night. On Saturday, January 31st, she enjoyed a family meal before her son-in-law dropped her off and the garage shut firmly at 9:50 at night. That marks the absolute final verified instance of anyone seeing her alive and breathing. Following that moment, a massive dead zone stretched on for hours. Precisely at 1:47 in the early morning of February 1st, the front entry camera died entirely. This was not a tech error or a wireless drop. Someone deliberately sabotaged the hardware. The disguised shadow caught in the subsequent video release deliberately obstructed the lens using plant matter before pulling the plug. The culprit was incredibly calculated and fully aware of the surveillance setup that needed to be blinded. Yet even if the device remained operational, the homeowner lacked a premium video storage plan. Zero live video was being archived to remote servers. Federal authorities were forced to scrape mere digital crumbs left behind in the hidden tech infrastructure. 41 minutes passed until 2:28 in the morning, which is when her medical heart device severed its link to her mobile phone. Really process the gravity of that detail. That internal medical implant sent steady biological updates via wireless technology. The exact second it blacked out at 2:28, it meant the victim was either dragged outside the standard connectivity radius, or it pinpointed the tragic instant a fatal physical event occurred. Regardless of the theory, the dark events inside that residence wrapped up entirely by 2:28 in the morning. During that 41-minute window, disturbing physical evidence stained the entryway. Allow me to pose a question before proceeding. If a criminal snatched a victim and secured them safely while seeking a massive payout, who would be the primary target? The logical route is glaring. The perpetrator would quietly reach out to the relatives. The orchestrator would establish a secure communication line, perhaps a burner phone, an anonymous inbox, or a hidden exchange point to secure the cash and swap the hostage. That remains the standard operating procedure for underground trades. Criminals desperately avoid media spotlights. They actively dodge police attention. The ultimate goal is executing a clean swap and vanishing without a trace. However, this specific scenario played out completely differently. The initial demand letter was mailed straight to a gossip outlet and dual local broadcast networks in Arizona. The author requested $6 million in digital currency and established a strict countdown. The text highlighted very specific facts regarding exterior property lighting and the victim's smart wristwear. The regional federal commander verified these clues were heavily scrutinized. Most importantly, it offered absolutely zero method for the relatives to reply. The envelope lacked a sender location, any contact digits, an exchange point, or a secret chat method. The chief executive of a major unsolved mystery organization famously dubbed these letters as parasitic noise. He pointed out 3 massive red flags, proving they were fraudulent. The author possessed zero exclusive knowledge, provided zero survival evidence, and established zero dialogue pathways. Fast forward to yesterday, perfectly aligning with her daughter's return to national morning television, when another letter hit the tabloid desk. The anonymous writer finally alleged that the elderly woman had succumbed to her fate. The text insisted she was spotted down in a Mexican border state. The media outlet instantly surrendered this document to federal agents who highly doubt its authenticity. Meanwhile, the digital currency account linked to the first threat remained completely empty past every single deadline. Nobody ever produced a shred of evidence that she survived. The shadow figure completely ignored the devastated relatives even after they broadcasted multiple heartbreaking pleas on television. An extortion demand lacking a reply mechanism completely fails as a hostage negotiation. It operates strictly as a declarative manifesto. For this particular broadcast, I am zeroing in on my recent discoveries regarding these bizarre letters. Furthermore, I will dissect the fresh correspondence I mentioned earlier that was mailed to the tabloids, as there are actually 2 distinct messages to unpack. 2 chilling messages dropped just yesterday, one broke at dawn, the other hit by dusk, both tracing back to the exact same mysterious sender. Before we dive into that, we absolutely must rewind and break down those initial extortion demands, unpacking exactly why Savannah Guthrie remains completely convinced that at least 2 of those earliest terrifying letters are genuinely authentic. Right now, though, we need to focus strictly on the absolute newest developments surrounding those explosive entertainment network demands, as fresh intel just leaked today that completely shifts the narrative from what we originally understood. The outlet confirmed receiving over 6 different digital dispatches from this exact same anonymous source, who reached out yesterday with prior messages repeatedly insisting they hold crucial secrets regarding Nancy Guthrie. This informant boldly swears they can identify the abductors, but what absolutely stands out here is how Harvey Levin specifically emphasized the author's deliberate choice to use the plural form of the word when describing the culprits. That specific grammar implies a highly coordinated crew pulled this off rather than a lone wolf, while this mysterious tipster brazenly guarantees they have pinpointed Nancy's exact current location. Interestingly enough, the news veteran explicitly noted that his massive media desk had experienced total radio silence from this specific contact for 4 straight weeks. Suddenly, the silence shattered with dual deliveries dropping yesterday, a dawn transmission followed rapidly by a late-day follow-up, keeping in mind we are strictly talking about Pacific Standard Time here. Since the outlet operates out of California, the timeline perfectly aligns with the devastating correspondence alleging Nancy currently remains in Sonora, Mexico, while tragically claiming she has already passed away. If you check a map, Sonora sits directly across the international boundary line, essentially functioning as the immediate southern neighbor to Tucson, Arizona, which practically hugs the foreign territory. Leaked reports confirm the letter chillingly stated the author spotted her breathing alongside that exact same crew down in Sonora, Mexico. Notice that specific phrasing referencing a group heavily reinforcing the chilling theory of a highly coordinated ring instead of a solo operative, while the informant boldly promises to guide law enforcement straight to the perpetrators. The seasoned journalists also emphasize how this shadowy author keeps recycling massive chunks of their original narrative, consistently doubling down on their alleged ability to hand the abductors over to the cops, just like they promised initially. Meanwhile, the major entertainment network officially verified that absolutely zero funds have hit the specified cryptocurrency wallet. Keep in mind the shadowy figure behind these threats attached a digital ledger address, essentially extorting the frantic family for exactly 50% of a single virtual coin. That specific crypto valuation currently hovers just north of the $30,000 mark, but despite those incredibly steep demands, that virtual wallet remained completely bare by the time evening rolled around yesterday. The media executive openly confirmed engaging federal agents directly feeding the National Bureau absolutely every shred of this highly sensitive digital evidence. He firmly stated his veteran investigative instincts are screaming red flags regarding this anonymous tipster, pointing out a profoundly compelling detail that ultimately convinced him these terrifying updates might genuinely be authentic. Despite his strong personal convictions regarding the validity, he heavily hinted that federal investigators appear bizarrely dismissive of the entire situation. Based on Levin's detailed breakdown, the precise individual responsible for yesterday's terrifying digital drop originally reached out the very first Tuesday following Nancy's horrific disappearance, aggressively insisting they possessed exact coordinates for the entire hostage crew. Following that initial Tuesday contact, right after the devastating ambush, a secondary message arrived by Wednesday, meaning these historical emails from several months back carried a chillingly dark update, declaring the ticking clock had completely run out. The veteran television producer is essentially arguing a vital theory here. This mastermind heavily implied their primary victim was still breathing during that original round of highly explosive correspondence. She allegedly survived until that devastating Wednesday update dropped violently, confirming her tragic demise, which perfectly highlights a massive inconsistency. If this was purely a financial scam, why would the extortionists completely kill their own urgent leverage? That exact psychological pivot is precisely why the seasoned reporter firmly believes these digital trails hold genuine weight, pointing out that a greedy scammer desperate for cash would naturally keep the financial stakes incredibly high. Wouldn't a basic grifter maintain the elaborate illusion of her miraculous survival just to continuously bleed the desperate family dry? Instead, this calculated operative intentionally established a proof-of-life scenario only to violently pivot 24 hours later by formally announcing the tiny window for a daring rescue mission had permanently slammed shut. The media boss noted how federal agents refused to greenlight any ransom drops, perfectly explaining the completely barren crypto wallet, which becomes incredibly fascinating when you sit back and analyze the deeper psychology. Honestly, for someone wielding Savannah Guthrie's immense financial network, dropping $30,000 feels like absolute pocket change in the grand scheme, forcing you to question why they wouldn't simply wire the required funds strictly as a low-risk gamble. However, when the absolute top investigative bureau in the entire country explicitly orders you to keep your wallet closed, you absolutely must respect that high-level operational guidance. Consequently, the news veteran continues to remind the public that the designated virtual ledger showed absolutely zero incoming digital transactions right up until late yesterday evening. We really need to clearly separate these recent digital messages from the original physical letters mailed out to regional Arizona broadcasters, which were also simultaneously dumped on the massive entertainment outlet. The defining contrast entirely revolves around criminal identity, mainly because this specific digital sender heavily denies being the primary orchestrator. Instead, they strictly position themselves as a highly knowledgeable bystander holding the golden ticket to the captive's exact coordinates. Those earlier chilling manifestos genuinely read like direct threats from the actual abductors, and those specific historical documents are precisely the ones Savannah firmly accepts as terrifyingly legitimate. Now, we urgently must pivot back to the physical evidence, primarily because those gruesome fluid trails completely shatter the traditional ransom narrative. An investigative television crew initially stumbled across the horrifying scene, documenting massive crimson splatters scattered violently across the victim's front property. The highest-ranking county sheriff publicly validated those grim findings, while subsequent genetic testing undeniably matched the tragic crimson samples directly to Nancy. A major digital network captured high-definition images of the brutal spill patterns, immediately forwarding everything to Dr. Michael Baden, arguably the most legendary medical examiner working in modern jurisprudence. His expert analysis bypassed basic observations to map out a brutal structural reality, specifically zeroing in on the unique circular stains featuring hollowed-out middle sections that forensic veterans notoriously dub pastry patterns. The legendary doctor clarified these unique splatter patterns strictly indicate facial hemorrhaging, mostly because biological fluid originating from those highly sensitive upper zones heavily oxygenates mid-flight, ultimately generating that hollow core, loudly screaming that she suffered either a devastating blunt force strike or a brutal face-first collapse. Furthermore, the forensic legend definitively stated this gruesome scatter pattern perfectly aligns with the chaotic, overwhelming violence of a highly aggressive ambush. Understand that a brutal ambush does not automatically equate to a hostage scenario, and that massive legal distinction matters. Traditional extortion inherently demands a business trade leveraging a human for a highly negotiable payout. An outright blitz attack solely relies on pure physical domination, and regardless of the motive, those crimson stains scream that Nancy suffered a savage beating on her doorstep inside those terrifying 41 minutes. The brutal assault carried enough blistering sheer kinetic force to instantly trigger catastrophic nasal and oral hemorrhaging. A top CNN crime expert and former NYPD counterterrorism boss dropped a massive bombshell about the blood spatter, a detail almost every news outlet completely ignored. That crimson stain is the ultimate game changer, according to him. It proves that no matter the initial motive, the entire plan derailed violently right on the porch. You cannot just brush past that gruesome scene. It acts as the ultimate proof that the perpetrator's initial objective completely morphed. We need to shift focus to the suspect's bag, which media outlets wrongly dismissed as a mere wardrobe choice when it actually reveals everything. This choice was purely tactical. The disguised intruder hauled a 25-liter trekking sack rather than a tiny pouch meant to stash stolen gadgets. They avoided typical loot bags, opting for gear built for extensive multi-hour missions. It possessed ample space for bindings, cables, and tools essential for snatching a human being, rather than swiping mere possessions. Lugging that specific gear to the property proves they fully intended to abduct somebody alive. Now let me bring a crucial voice into this conversation. This brilliant woman dedicated countless years serving as a federal anti-terror investigator before transitioning to the CIA handling ultra-classified missions the general public will never even comprehend. Her entire professional life revolves around analyzing the methods ruthless predators use to plot attacks meant to intimidate and dominate. Tracy Walter is a seasoned operative, not just a talking head. During a News Nation interview alongside Brian Enton, she dropped an absolute bombshell that rocked internet sleuths everywhere, yet mainstream outlets practically ignored her crucial insight. She completely destroyed the botched robbery theory, bluntly pointing out that ordinary thieves never abduct victims because it drastically ruins their escape plan. Snatching someone instantly escalates a simple break-in into a severe federal abduction offense, carrying mandatory permanent prison time. Seasoned felons absolutely never stumble into that massive risk blindly. Pressing deeper, she argued the assault was incredibly precise. Nobody randomly wanders onto this specific estate seeking a quick score. Following that logic, she delivered a chilling statement that completely rewrites weighs the suspect's potential live drive. In her expert view, a deeply enraged critic, or a severely obsessed stalker, fixated on Savannah Guthrie deliberately honed in on her loved ones. The target was the anchor rather than Nancy. Let us pivot to another brilliant specialist who provided the most compelling breakdown regarding the sheer chaos inside that residence. Enter John Miller, a premier security commentator for CNN, who previously dominated the New York police force as their top anti-terror and intelligence boss. Prior to those massive roles, he actually commanded operations directly at the Federal Bureau. Armed with dual Peabodys and 11 journalistic Emmys, he dropped a staggering breakdown precisely 30 days into the tragic crisis. Within that brilliant report lies what I consider the absolute most vital public revelation ever uttered regarding this baffling mystery surrounding Nancy. Listen to his exact theory. We must consider that a meticulously organized break-in could have derailed, violently forcing the attacker to drastically improvise a fake extortion plot once their initial operational options totally vanished. Let us dissect that brilliant insight. This struck by design, devoid of random chance, meaning the prowler arrived possessing a crystal-clear agenda. Total catastrophe, not just a minor hiccup. Whatever twisted goal they harbored shattered instantly the moment they stepped foot on that front landing. Totally morphed. The horrifying event shifted gears, retroactively demanding rapid improvisation from a perpetrator engulfed by immense panic. Their tactical window slammed shut. Accomplishing their primary goal became impossible, prompting the expert to highlight the ultimate catalyst. That horrifying crimson puddle near the entryway heavily implies that regardless of the initial malicious intent harbored by the intruder, the entire situation spiraled violently out of control. Wondering why journalists received those demands rather than loved ones, the author actually possessed zero leverage to bargain. The perpetrator frantically manufactured a deceptive storyline post-disaster. Notice the glaring absence of hostage pictures. A deceased victim cannot pose for cameras, proving those letters were pure fiction. Those terrifying messages served merely as a frantic smokescreen following the collapse. I must remain completely transparent here, as the opposing theory carries incredible weight and demands your absolute, undivided attention today. Do not misinterpret my words as a tragic fatality declaration. Authorities have absolutely refused to finalize such a bleak, devastating outcome. I refuse to point fingers. We are watching a blazing government probe lacking official targets. So trust me, anyone claiming absolute certainties is feeding you garbage. During her national morning broadcast, the famous anchor passionately declared absolute faith in those twin extortion letters her relatives received. Broadcasting emotional appeals on television twice requires profound, unbreakable conviction regarding their chilling authenticity. We must honor her deeply personal perspective. A grieving relative trapped within this hellscape possesses secret insights we lack, which strongly contradicts the improvised disaster hypothesis. The shadowed assailant arrived heavily armed, wearing gear explicitly crafted to wrangle and transport a conscious breathing captive. Camera footage from January 11th hints at meticulous early scouting by a stalker analyzing the ground significantly in advance. Former Puma County murder investigator Kurt Dabb suspects between 2 and 4 villains collaborated, arguing that a synchronized squad points toward a flawless getaway rather than a frantic mistake. Those letters reference highly classified trivia regarding Nancy's smart wristwear and specialized security illumination that reporters simply never uncovered. Such pinpoint accuracy heavily implies the author held first-hand intimacy with the crime scene, completely debunking the random copycat theory. Here stands the raw truth. Clues supporting an active hostage crisis rely entirely on tactical choices, whereas the clues screaming botched assassination are strictly rooted in physical bloodwork. Those crimson splatters unreturned demands deafening quiet, and missing photos paint a grim picture. Surprisingly, both chilling narratives make sense. Yet merely a single theory thrives without needing a breathing captive. Let us review the stark reality. 66 days into this relentless hunt, seasoned federal spy Tracy Walter firmly declares the assault displays far too much precision to resemble ordinary street violence. An attacker intimately familiar with the prominent broadcaster zeroed in on her vulnerable relative, driven by severe infatuation or a burning thirst for brutal vengeance. Meanwhile, veteran lawman John Miller insists that Grizzly Spatter reveals the ultimate truth. The sinister operation completely imploded the second the intruder hit the doorstep. Consequently, everything following the ambush, the sinister letters extortion, attempts and eerie quiet, was likely fabricated to mask a devastating earlier tragedy. This was never a rescue, it was a ruthless cover-up. Morgan Wright, chief of the National Center for Open and Unsolved Cases, dropped this bombshell. He stated it bluntly: a calculated kidnapping ended in disaster. The plan was to keep her breathing, but she tragically perished. That explains why the captors sent demands to tabloids rather than her loved ones. Neither those letters nor I will officially declare Nancy deceased. The manhunt remains intensely active. Genetic evidence is currently under analysis, and deep family ancestry tracing continues to run smoothly. Federal agents are relentlessly pursuing unfinished clues. However, the initial media narrative, suggesting a captor grabbed Nancy alive just to hold her for payout, shifted. Professionals in the field have silently abandoned that primary assumption entirely. The new working angle is far grimmer, sparking from Tracy Walter's incredibly bold inquiry, who harbored enough vicious hatred towards Nancy Guthrie to deliberately target her elderly parent. While the public remains largely in the dark, investigators might secretly know the truth. Nancy remains vanished on day 66, the 84-year-old left without critical prescriptions. Yesterday, her daughter bravely returned to the morning broadcast desk for the first time in over 2 months, forcing a professional smile amidst this heartbreaking mystery. Meanwhile, another chilling message declaring her mom deceased reached the tabloids. You can report leads by dialing 1-800-CALL-FBI. There is over $1 million in reward funds waiting for anonymous tips. No names needed. Just reach out if you notice anything suspicious around Catalina Foothills before February 1st. Whether it was a strange car, an unfamiliar face, or creepy behavior, call that hotline immediately. As John Miller noted, letting time pass occasionally reveals fresh perspectives. Occasionally, a crucial piece of evidence is staring right back at you, just waiting to be uncovered. Type amen below for Nancy, share your prayers, and tell us your location tonight. May the heavens protect you, your loved ones, and your elders constantly. No matter your global location right now, the momentum on this investigation refuses to die down. Whenever a legitimate update drops, we will cover it instantly. Hit that subscribe button immediately, because when the truth finally comes out, you absolutely cannot be 2 weeks late. Behind every headline is a human heart, a family holding its breath, and a community learning how fragile safety can feel. This story reminds us of a painful but powerful truth. In moments of fear, truth matters more than noise. When confusion rumors and dramatic claims spread faster than facts, people can forget that real lives are at stake. That is why we must choose compassion over curiosity, responsibility over sensationalism, and unity over reckless speculation. A missing person is not a piece of entertainment. It is a mother, a loved one, a life that matters deeply. This lesson calls us to be more alert, more humane, and more thoughtful. We should protect the vulnerable, pay attention to suspicious behavior, value reliable evidence, and support the people carrying unimaginable grief. Communities become stronger when they stand together, not by spreading panic, but by sharing hope, care, and truth. Most of all, this story teaches us never to grow numb to another person's suffering. Even in darkness, empathy is a form of light. When we speak with kindness, act with integrity, and remain faithful to what is right, we help create a world where justice has a voice and every human life is treated with dignity.